Good morning, Mobile people. Thank you. Today's program is a Compass MS Care program. We are here in Mobile, Alabama. We have Jeff Segal, who's a MS exercise specialist. We have our supporters of today's program. We have Bristol-Myers Squibb, Genentech, Sandoz, and TG Therapeutics, as you can see on the screen as well. Let's give them a round of applause for helping us to do today's program. Just a quickie, though. We did have exhibitors here: Alexion, Biogen, Bristol-Myers Squibb, EMD Serono, Genentech, Novartis, Sandoz, TG Therapeutics, and Viatris. So we just want to thank them for being here to, let you see their products as well. All right, Jeff's going to get some of you out of your seats and to help him do this program. Let's get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. This is a significant week for me because I'm in Alabama, right? No, this week marks half my life I've lived with MS. So I've been living with MS for 25 years come next Sunday. And who in here when they got diagnosed thought 25 years ahead? 10 was the most I thought when I first was diagnosed. But over the 25 years, I've dedicated as much of my learning capacity to MS and to movement in MS and to what's worked for me with MS and then what's worked for others with MS and then how I can explain to others how it's helped me and how it can help you as well. So movement's key. And the most important thing about movement is doing it, not talking about it, not hoping that you will do it, but actually doing it. And MS does cause people to possibly lose the ability to move in certain ways. So the only real way to turn that around is to fight back and actually move. And thinking about it will not get you to that place. And if you guys, how many in here would like to do better than they're doing right now? Okay. So I'm in the right place. I do too. I want to be better than I am right now. I want that for you as well. So what I'm going to share with you, it may help you, and it may not help you. And then something that may help you may not help others, because MS is something that affects everyone a little bit different. Like there's no two patients identically the same, even twins. They have different symptoms that come on at different times that last different amounts of durations, and then the way you deal with it after the fact and recover is up to you, your team, and your support, and your body has to do it as well. But sitting in one place isn't doing you very much unless you have to sit there and you can't get up. So that's why I'm here. I want to show you guys how to get up. I want to show you guys what it's like to get up if you can't, and if you can't, some alternatives to getting up. So how many people in here cannot stand up? Well, I know you can stand up because when we were outside talking, you were standing. So that's something that I want you to think about. Don't let barriers get in the way of what you can do, because that's what they're there for. And we want change. Change is good. We want positive change. But in order to change, there's really 5 stages of change. Have any of you ever heard about the 5 stages of change? It's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and then maintenance. And then some of them have relapse, which goes back to whatever stage it's in. But they make sense. When you want something new, you start thinking about, just a little bit. Like if someone's going to start an exercise program, which obviously I'm here about exercise, not everybody wakes up and says, you know what? Today's the day I'm going to start exercising, and actually does it that day. It's very rare for that to happen, because what led up to that was pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and then if they do the exercise, they can get to maintenance. So the pre-contemplation is, you have an issue, there's something that you want, but it's probably not going to occur in the next 6 months. Contemplation is, hey, I want it more. I'm not quite sure about it, but I'm pretty positive I'm going to do it, and it's likely that in the next 6 months it's going to occur. And that's the beginning of it. So preparation then means that you're getting to that 30-day out period or so. It means that in the next 30 days or so, you're probably going to say, that's it, we're starting, and I've already developed my plan, and that's planning. And planning is the most important thing, because if you don't plan to exercise, you're basically planning to do something other than exercise, and you won't do it. And I've been there. It's not a long period of time that I've been there, but I'm very, very, very happy moving as much as I can, when I can, and there's a day every week that I rest. I still move a lot that day, but I rest because I know the next day is going to be going and going and going and going. And I'm working with so many interesting people that have taught me so much, because I can tell you every patient that I'm working with, I'm learning as much from them as they're learning from me. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, I came up with some new movements. I bent my arm totally backwards. That was a joke. No, there's no new movements. There aren't new movements. If there's a new movement, it means you got to go to the doctor and have that joint fixed, because you can only move the body in so many ways. But there's so many different names for the exercises that go along with that. So if someone tells you, I have a new exercise, well, yeah, you have a new exercise. Maybe it's new to you, but to me, it's a movement, and it's in anatomical terms. It's not lifting your arm to the right and 4 inches up. It's a lateral raise. You raise something laterally. And lateral movement's important because when you're having a difficult time walking forwards, you're having a more difficult time walking to the side. And if you have to get out of the way of somebody or something, and you have to walk to the side and step like this, and you don't have the strength to stop, you'll keep going. So don't think about movement as just in a linear way. It has to be in all directions. And that's why it's going to lead me to a warm-up, but when I warm up, I do it in a multiplanar way. I don't just get on a treadmill and walk, or sit on a bike and walk and pedal, because that's it's just doing that movement. I'd rather warm myself up. I do movements this way, diagonal, up and down, side to side, getting on the ground, getting up, doing whatever it's going to be that's going to get my muscles ready to do what I'm going to do, when I'm going to stress them. And stressing your muscles is what you do when you exercise, especially with resistance exercise. Why do people not want to exercise? There's got to be a correlation between why people don't want to exercise and why people want to exercise and don't exercise. It's because it's work. It's work, and people are afraid that if they do something, it's not going to be as good as it was when they did it the very best time they ever did it in their life. That's human nature. You think of yourself, and hopefully you think highly of yourselves. And if you're a happy person and everything is going well for you, you're going to think about yourself as that happy person. And it doesn't mean it's because you were at your best. It just means because you're enjoying yourself. And enjoyment is something that you can get out of exercise, especially when what you do exercise-wise is noticeable to you when you're not exercising. So that's a big point that I like to make, is that you don't exercise to be better at the exercise in the gym. You do the exercise so you're better at life and you're able to do more. And when it comes to flexibility, I've got a lot of thoughts and theories, and I've read so much research on different types of flexibility and ways of becoming flexible. But I can tell you, if you have the ability to move into the range of motion that is a full range of motion, that flexibility is going to stay with you, that you can use. If you're stretching because you have spasticity, that's another issue. That's another reason to stretch. That's not an active stretch, that's a passive stretch. That's when you're doing something, when you're like on the ground and reaching forward, or something along those lines, pulling something, or someone's pushing you forward. Those are static stretches, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get into that range of motion actively, but it does mean that you're working on decreasing your spasticity, which is a very, very, very important thing. But I do stress full range of motion, because with an exercise, no matter what exercise it is, if you go into a full range of motion, that means you're able to move into the way that you'd want to stretch. And you're stretching the opposite muscles, the antagonist muscles that aren't being used. So like if you're doing a bench press, your back is stretching. When you're at the eccentric part of a bench press, your chest is stretching. If you do a row, when you pull the whatever you're holding on to, whether it be a dumbbell or a cable, all the way back, you're stretching your chest. When you come all the way forward in the full range of motion, you're stretching your back. Same thing when it comes to doing a squat, stretching the muscles in the back of your legs and the front of your legs. And spasticity occurs more so on the back of the leg. I always say, if you lay down, everything that's facing down is fair game for the spastic creatures. But a lot of that has to do with how we function in daily life and what we do most of the time. So what do you do most of the time? What are you doing right now? Right now you're sitting down, your hamstring is shortened, and this muscle, when you straighten it, it's going to be a little bit tight. It should be a little bit tight because you sit for the amount of time you're here and the amount of time wherever else you're sitting. When you're in a car driving, you're sitting. So that's why stretching your hamstrings is so important. Stretching your glutes are so important. And people who have spasticity have it. Usually you get it in your calf, sometimes your adductors in the inside of your legs. But everyone's different. So I see rarely, but I see some people that get it in the front. The front you don't have as much an issue with because you're sitting and it's on stretch. Your knees bent, this is stretching. So you're helping your range of motion by sitting in that way, but if you can't straighten it, it doesn't matter, right? So one of the new things that I came up with, an idea that, when I go to bed at night, I'm thinking of a million things. That's the reason why I don't get as much sleep as I should, and that's the one component of my life that I need to work on. Sleep is so important because that's when we recover. But I sit up at night and I'm thinking about different people that I'm working with or movements that I've done that I can change and do better. And it ends up working out. Sometimes it doesn't, but it usually works out, and I'm the guinea pig, so I try it first. And if it's difficult, I won't give someone that exercise. How many people have a difficult time lifting their knees up? I want to see some hands. Now I want to see, if you feel up to standing, I want to see how many people can stand up, because I just want to see what it looks like having a room full of people standing, and I want to take a look across the room to see the differences in everyone's posture. All right, your feet are happier. They're telling your brain that there's a floor below you and everything between is working. Your kinetic chain starts at your feet. Now, you guys can have a seat. I just wanted to make sure that you stood up one more time in your life. That's it. You get one extra stand out of that. And when you leave here, you'll get up again and you'll go and do whatever it is that you're going to do. But you'll stand up or move or however it is. But it's all about movement. I want to show some people some things that I feel are important. But I also want to find out from you guys what you feel is important that I can show you, because if you don't, I'm going to talk forever. So first, is there anyone that minds coming up here? Someone? If I don't care whether you have MS or not, I'd prefer you to be able to, show what you can do with MS, and I can show you. But just somebody. The only thing I ask is if you do come up here, you just have to give your consent to be recorded. So somebody, please. If I don't want to drag anybody up here. Anybody? Okay, come on up. Now this is, please use the stairs. Okay, so I don't want to, it'd be rude. Wait, first off, do you give consent to be up here and be, okay. Do you have issues with your hip flexors ever? Okay, well, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to show you something. I'm going to put my hands on your shoulders. Okay, so, and if you don't trust me, then you can't do this. So please, just have trust in me. So I'm going to put my hands on your shoulders. Now, what I want you to do is lean forward. I'm going to hold you up. Keep leaning. I promise I will not let you fall. Okay, now, no. Okay, so right now what you're using to keep your body straight, your abs, your core is engaged. What I want you to do is step forward with your right leg, lifting your knee up. No, watch me, just like this. And back. We keep leaning. Yeah, I want you to do that while you're leaning against my hands. Is that easy? Okay, so if you had issues with your hip flexors and you're able to get your legs a little bit off the ground, by me holding you in that position, your core is engaged, you have more ability with your extremities. And even if you don't have as much ability, what it is doing is gravity is on your side, so it's easier to do that. Some people can't get their leg back, which is okay. You got your leg forward, and that's something you hadn't done in the past. So what I'm trying to do is figure out how can I get someone to do something that they haven't done before in a different way. You know, it's like certain foods we don't like unless we have certain toppings on it. It's the same thing. Like some people won't eat fish unless it's with a dip. Some people won't eat fish with a dip. So is there anything that see, now I got you up here. Is there anything that you're looking to get out of this? Is there any movements, any things that are complicated for you or?
The heat management.
Heat management, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing about heat management is we're getting into the winter. No, but the heat management is dress in layers. And do stuff along those lines, because when you're getting ready to do whatever it is you're going to do, you got to prepare for it. So if you know that you're going somewhere hot, you got to be prepared with a plan. You have to have an action plan. What am I going to do before, while I'm in the heat, and what happens when I'm out of the heat? And it's cool, you need to have the right clothing. So you need to be ready for that. And the heat management, there's cooling vests, there's cooling things. Your neck helps with your central nervous system more so because it's your neck. So putting something there might help. But to prepare to be in the heat is the best way to go. Stay hydrated. How many people in here are not dehydrated most of the time? There's 3 hands up, and there's a lot of people in the room. You can go back down. I just wanted to get you to do that step forward thing. If anybody else wants to try it who has issues with their legs, you can come up and I'd be happy to do it. I'd have people do it. I prefer to hold the person than them do it on a countertop, especially when it's the first or second time, because I trust that I am not going to let them fall, and I also do not know how strong they are when they're holding on, and if they slip or something the first time, down goes that, you know. So what I'll have people do is get into this position in the kitchen, you know, or on a kitchen counter, and just do something like this. Now that I didn't use much of my hip flexor, but I did use it. And if they can get it back, great. You see that? That's gravity that's allowing it to swing forward because of the way I'm leaning. And so what I would have someone do is, rather than just sit in a chair and go up and down with their legs, try that first, because if you can't do it in a chair, when you're in this position, when you're like this and you're flexed at the hips, you can only get your leg up so high. What do you need to lift your knees up for in that position? You don't. I mean, unless it's just practicing it, but you only have this much range of motion to get up and down. Were you going to come up? All right, come on up. Okay, do you give consent to be in the video?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any electrical stuff connected to your feet or anything? You got a brace? You got any kind of... Okay, so I just wanted to say, I saw you have something there. I didn't know if that was... It's just a brace, okay. Didn't know if it was one of the... There's so many of these different devices between Walk8 and Bioness, and they have ones that go all the way down. So you have trouble lifting your knees. Okay, so we're gonna let's do that, but you got to trust me. Okay, so I want you to lean forward. Come onto your toes a little bit. So you're using your abs. You got to trust me. I'm stronger than you think. There you go. Now lift whichever leg you have a difficult time lifting and just step forward with it. There you go. Now getting it back is going to be hard. So there you go. Put it back down. Now do the other one. Can you get it up? There you go. And back. There. Okay, so did that seem easier than just doing this? Yeah. I think that I noticed one thing that you did was you didn't let your leg go. Once you get because when you're walking, unless you have an altered gait. Now, the best way to prevent stuff like falling and stuff is preventing the fall. I mean, if you prevent the fall, then you don't have to worry about getting up. So with that, you have to allow it to come in forward and just drop down. I just want people to get that motion in so that their brain can neurally adapt to the movement again. It's what we call muscle memory, is neurological adaptations to a movement. You've heard muscle memory before. Well, your muscles don't really have memories. I mean, there's no brain in there, but your central nervous system does. So that, now, the reason that it's a little bit, now watch this, wait. I want you to try to walk forward. Does it feel any easier to take the step while I'm pressing against your shoulders? Okay, the reason is because I got your core engaged. That's everything I wanted to show you, but that worked. And I want you guys to know how important core strength is, because if you have a weak core, that's what's attached to everything. And that's what keeps you stable. You are an unstable person with a weak core if you don't have, if your core. So work on core, and I'll show you some things. You can step down. Do you want me to help you down, or you're good? Just don't jump. If you jump, it's good, just don't land. Now those are some things I just like to show what I'm working on with people. There's so many different other types of things like that. When you, and the reason why I said that getting your leg up to here is the more important part, because that was the goal. When you walk, like a normal gait, now there's people in here who have normal gaits, and there's also people in here that want to have normal gaits. And some of you may become those people that will have normal gaits and maybe not. But when you walk, you have so much momentum going between your arms and your legs. When you step forward with this leg, you're not a machine that has to do this when you have a normal gait. When you don't have a normal gait, you're taught to lift over and go, so you become more mechanical. But the reality is when you don't need to do that, and you step and you push off with your foot, the push off swings your leg forward more so than your hip flexors firing. Hip flexors are important. And if you try to train your hip flexors, it should be an aerobic way, because they are aerobic muscles. They're supposed to have energy for long periods of time, opposed to stuff like chest muscles or muscles that are type 2 muscle fibers. There's less type 2, there's more type 1 that's aerobic, and that allows you to continually do it. Now that's what we want. We want to have endurance. Endurance is a difficult thing to achieve sometimes. But for those of you who do walk, how many of you walk for, say, if you're walking for 10 minutes, after about, say, 10 minutes or just before that, you start to drag your leg? You know what the best thing to do is in that case? Rest. You stop, because that's neurological fatigue. If you start walking and you're not dragging your leg and eventually you do, it's not because you don't have the muscles, or maybe it's because you did have the muscles, but because your neurological system didn't allow those muscles to fire properly, they get weaker. But a minute or so, or a minute, 2 minutes rest will allow you to regain your ability to walk like you did before. And that's something that is so much more important. As bad as it sounds that you have to stop and rest, it's a hell of a lot better than dragging your foot just long enough to fall. So these are all things that I'm trying to give you that are going to prepare you for success and prevent injury. Because if you have an injury and you have MS, now you have two things, right? Yeah. So you don't want to have two. You want to have, you're stuck with MS. I don't answer the questions of how do you get it or this and that, because I have it. I can't unget it. So I'm living with it. And you know what the alternative is? Dying. So let's live with it, right? I don't want to be dead with MS. I want to be alive with MS. So I move as much as I can, and that allows me to be on a stage here and talk and probably get dragged off the stage because I'm going to be talking for a long time because I'm passionate about what I'm doing because I've helped others. And when I see someone else get help and be able to do the things that they thought they couldn't do or never imagined was possible, that does it for me. And I know that I'm always going to stay active. I'm going to do what I can when I can. And if it's not doing it in an exercise program, it's doing it with someone else in their exercise program. But I have to do that every day or else I'm not fit enough to keep up with the people that I'm working with. And when that happens, I lose my job. I don't want, if I looked down and couldn't see my feet because my belly was in front of my feet, would you hire me to help you exercise? No. And you probably need to give me a ride to the pharmacy too to get something to take care of the diabetes that I got because I was sedentary and got a lot of fat that doesn't allow insulin to work, and that's a comorbidity. You don't want comorbidities. That's why walking, moving, eating, and if you're looking to lose, how many people in here want to lose weight? Okay, so the way that I like to have people lose weight is not by losing muscle. Okay, so if you lose weight and you sit all the time, you're not losing as much fat as you are muscle. And if you gain weight and you exercise, you're gaining muscle and losing fat. It's a no-brainer, right? I mean, if you could just make yourself do it. So what is it that will get you to do that? What would inspire you to exercise? What would get you to do something that you normally wouldn't do? If you were told that if you don't do it, you have a year left, if you do it, you have a long road ahead of you that's going to be okay, is that going to do it for you? Or would you wait for the day before? No, you do it. And like I was saying, your benefits outside of the gym are like much greater than what they are in the gym. The gym is just a catalyst to get you to do more stuff and allows you to go and move around. How many people in here do aerobic exercise? So aerobic exercise and cardiovascular exercise aren't exactly the same, but people put them in the same category, so we'll keep them there. But the best thing that you get out of that isn't weight loss. You're not going to lose weight because you exercise. That's not going to catch up with your diet. There's no way. If you think that you're going to eat as much as you've been eating that have gained weight, if you think you're going to get that to go away from the gym, it's not going to happen unless you go to the gym, and then after you go to the gym, you realize, I worked my tail off in the gym. Why am I going to eat all this food? I'm going to eat something healthier. Then you can say, well, I did it because of the gym, but it's not the gym that actually got you to lose the weight, unless you go to the gym again on the treadmill and run a half a marathon every day, because that's what it's going to do to keep up with the amount of calories that you're bringing in. So I know for me, I have to eat about close to 3,000 calories a day to not lose weight, if not a little bit more than that. I know my resting metabolic rate. So that's a great thing to know. Now, if you realize that your metabolic rate is way down here, you should be eating for what you're going to do, not for what you're going to taste. And there's ways around that too. I mean, there's medicine for that, but then again, that medicine that's out there that people take to lose weight and not have an appetite is basically, it's kind of like using AI to write a paper. It's like, because what it's doing is, it's not the behavior modification that you need to not eat as much and to do more. That's what you need. That's like, when people really can't do it, I'd say that, that's a good reason to do that, to take a medicine for weight loss. But people don't lose weight because they enjoy eating food, and they have appetites, and they don't know the difference from appetite and hunger. Hunger is what you feel when you need to eat because you're hungry and you need food. Appetite's what happens when you pass the refrigerator and you take a peek in there to see if something new is in there. You know it's in there. Or if you find yourself in the kitchen and you look in the cabinet just because you're in the kitchen, oh, that looks good, and you start eating it, but you didn't go in the kitchen because you were hungry. And so that's one thing I always like to tell people is, and I find myself in a room all the time in my house, and I'm like, why am I here? What was I coming to get? If you do that and you're in the kitchen, Get out. Because you'll know if you're hungry. But if you do that and you stay in the kitchen long enough and the refrigerator opens and the next thing you know you're eating something and the next thing you know you're tired, and it's a cycle that's probably gone on most of your life. So the best way to control what you're eating, not knowing your metabolic rate and everything, but to control it, is to keep track of it and plan. If you plan ahead of time, plan to eat for what you're going to do. And not every calorie is created equal, but a calorie is a calorie when it comes to weight gain and weight loss. So total calories is what I usually go by. It doesn't mean I can eat only fat. You have a well-balanced meal, colorful, lots of colors in your plate. The more colorful, the more nutrients, and the more variety of foods you eat, the more diverse your diet is and the healthier you can be, unless the colors are from Skittles. That doesn't count. But candy and all that junk food and stuff, I'm not a fan of it. Do I think it should be off the shelves? No. I think you should be able to control yourself. If you can't control yourself, you have to own up to it. That's your fault. You did that to yourself. If you ate too fast, and do you have a question? Are we going to do Q&A at the end? Okay, in 5 minutes we'll do Q&A. Hold that thought. Or write it down. I can't hold thoughts. I can lift a lot of weight, but I can't lift a thought very long. As I was saying, hi, I'm Jeff. I lost my train of thought. Eat for what you're going to do. Plan it ahead of time. And if you write what you plan to eat and you stick to that plan, you're going to have the outcome that you want. If you wait till you're hungry, you're going to overeat. If you eat too fast, you're going to overeat. So when I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now, I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now, what I did was I never put anything on my spoon before I swallowed what was in my mouth. And you'd be surprised. I've seen people with 2 hands. It's like if it was heavy and if the spoon and fork were heavy enough, it'd be an exercise. But your brain will not tell you that your stomach is full until about 20 minutes into your meal. So if 20 minutes into your meal you finished your plate and took the person next to you's food, then you've got problems. You're going to be overweight. We want to be able to move around and do the things that we can do in a healthy way. We want our numbers to come in good. We don't want comorbidities. Exercise, diet, mindfulness. These are things that make us healthy. They give us overall health. And we have the option to do or not. That's up to you. I can tell you, every person that I work with, my goal, I want it more than most of them until they get a feel for it, until they get that taste. And if you've never had that taste of success of doing something for yourself that makes you feel better, look better, more available to your family and your loved ones, you ought to give it a shot and give it time, because it will be something that becomes a major part of your life, and it will become a major part of your life a lot longer than your life would have been otherwise. And as we're a more sedentary population than others, because we have to do more to be able to do more, sitting down and not doing a lot, you're going to end up either losing weight and not eating, and you'll end up with osteoporosis. That's what happens when you're too light and you don't move, because you're not stressing your bones enough, then you're not going to rebuild. Or diabetes, because you're overweight. And I'm not going to tell you the reason people have diabetes, but I can tell you if you don't eat as much fat, it might help. Because fat gets in your system, and the more fat you have in your system, the less receptive your body is to insulin, and then you have to buy insulin. But it's cheaper now, right? You can get it for lower rates now. But you don't want it. You don't want to have to do that. You don't want to have a higher risk for heart attack and stroke and whatever else is out there. Shit, we have MS. We don't need any other letters, right? I don't want any more letters. I have my initials and I have MS. Okay, I don't want anything else. Do you? So that's why I stress this, and I'm so passionate about allowing you to not do the things that you do not knowingly. I mean, you eat and you eat and you eat, and then you sit down and you rest. When I'm done eating, I go for a walk. If I can't walk, I'll do something else. There was a time I couldn't walk and I did other things. I crawled, I did whatever else I could. But I kept moving because movement stimulates the mind, stimulates the muscles, and it makes you happier. I mean, you can release endorphins and all the things that we try to do. That's what meds, I mean, if there was a med that was an endorphin, just an endorphin medicine, what would you do? I mean, you'd take it, but you can't. You got to make it happen. You got to make that happen so you can be better, and then you can be part of the family doing everything that they're doing. Anybody have any questions? Is that 5 minutes?
That's your 5 minutes. So first, let's thank Jeff for doing this presentation.
I'd like to ask them a question.
I have to get back to them with the microphone, all right? So I want to take the questions that I have online first, and then I'm going to run out to everybody out there. Is there a trick to minimizing spasticity brought on by sudden movements while exercising? I try to move slowly and deliberately, but one quick step can take me out for days.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why that can happen. I mean, coming from how much you've in your water intake, and some people can get spasticity if they have too much water and not enough electrolytes and flush it out. You have to know what you're doing when you're hydrating. Like I said, when I looked around, how many people in here are dehydrated or aren't hydrated? Only a couple people really fessed up to having not be dehydrated. Most of us are dehydrated. That's the number one reason for having spasticity, is not having enough water in your system. I mean, you need hydration. So make sure if you go to the gym, you're hydrated when you're there. That will reduce spasticity. Make sure that if you start to feel, I know when spasticity or a cramp begins, to me, it kind of feels like a fish hook that is in the fish's mouth, but once you set that hook, that spasm's not going away because that barb is in the fish's mouth. Does that make sense to you guys? So don't let the barb go in. Start to do a little stretching. Whatever that muscle is, stretch it. And if you feel it's still going to happen, then that's the time to stop working those muscles and do something else so you don't get stuck in the pain that you're in, like you said you were for endless periods of time.
Thank you. Next one. You don't get that.
Oh, okay. Well, it's like a two-part question. So I heard you say about the lateral movement, moving forward, moving to the side. I developed within the last year and a half. I can't think of the proper term, but motion dizziness. And so when I'm exercising, sometimes if I'm moving too quick, it'll start, and so then that'll take me out for a while.
I couldn't hear what you said prior to that. What will start?
On the lateral movement, if you have, the dizziness spells.
Okay, dizziness. That's what I missed.
Yeah. And so how do you control that? And then my other part of the question was from your statement that says what is meant by eat for what you do. Like if I have a full day of school, waking up at 5 a.m., have kids and work in between, how do you plan that out so that way you're eating for what you do?
That's a great question. I'm very happy you asked that question because that's something that I missed in what I was saying, but it goes back to the plan. And if you plan to eat X amount throughout the week, but you realize the time to do that isn't so much there, when you're making dinner, when you're doing whatever, cook a little bit more, plan your meals out so you can space it out, and don't let yourself get over hungry. So take food with you wherever you're going. You can take a little cooler, and 3 to 4 hours. After 3 to 4 hours, you should be eating. And if you're still hungry if you're still full from what you had prior, then you probably ate too much. But from birth up, every 3 to 4 hours is when we should eat, like how we fed our children. When you have an infant, if you hear them crying, it's usually after about 3 hours because they're hungry and they can't talk. And same thing goes for when your kids go to school. You give them breakfast, they go to school, they have a snack, then they have lunch, then they come home, they have a snack, then they have dinner, and maybe have dessert afterwards. That's spacing it out. So space it out, portion it out, and plan. That's one part of your question. The other part was what was the other part? How to plan for what you're going to eat?
The vertigo.
Oh, the vertigo. Okay, so vertigo has many causes. It may be that you have MS. You may have a lesion in the areas of the brain that cause imbalances, or you may have crystals in your ear. They may not be in the right place. So if you can figure out if that's the problem, there could be a solution outside of what you're asking. I mean, you got to think outside of MS. The other thing is, some people that I work with, I have to tell them, no, don't keep your head down. You got to keep your head up. You ever notice when you ever take yoga and they tell you to stand on one leg, even if it's not something that you can do, because in yoga, they're great. They'll have people doing things they can do and an alternative to what other people can do. But if they tell you to balance on one leg, what do they tell you? Stare at one thing. But if you start looking this way, that's what happens. And you can get dizzy. So if you keep your eyes, like when you're walking, I always say about a 45-degree angle in front of you is the best spot to look at. If you're stepping laterally, maybe you look where you're walking and slow it down. But that could be. It's hard to. I can't give you the answer to a specific person's question without actually working with them. But these are things that can help not keeping your head down. Keeping your head down can also cause shooting pain down your arms and legs if you have MS. I'm sure your doctor's told you chin to chest, right? Put your chin down. They want to see if you got a shooting pain down your limbs and see if you have a cervical lesion. So that's another thing that is important, is that view looking forward rather than looking down when you walk. A lot of people look down, straight down, because they want to see their feet, but if you look at that angle, you'll see what you're walking up to rather than straight down.
So Jeff, excuse me a minute, but you gave her reasons of why she could have vertigo. Can you please tell her how she could find out what might be causing crystals or the actual MS?
That's going back to the physician. You need to go to your physician. That's the most important thing. When you have an issue like that, that's who's going to be your go-to, your physician. And there are great physical therapists out there that actually specialize in vertigo when it comes to the crystals in the ears, and it's a vestibular thing. So as much as I would like to have the answer and give it to you on a platter, your physician's the one who's your go-to that you're going to need to talk to about. Then they'll send you to the right area, and whether it be an ENT or getting imaging, there's a lot of things like that you can try.
Okay, next question here.
I'd like a demonstration or an explanation when I'm on the floor. How is easy to get myself up without having a chair to pull myself up on?
Okay, I'm gonna do a demonstration here. I'm just gonna go on the ground and get up about 5 different ways. And if I do it a little bit fast, it's because of the time we have, but I want you to imagine what I'm doing in slow motion. But the first thing I want you to know is when you fall down and you try to get right back up, chances are you're gonna fail. When you fall down, you just had an event. Your body hit the ground, your head may have hit the ground, whatever it is, and you're panicking and you're in a mode and a mindset of, I can't get a thought out, I just need to get up, and you try to get up and you're probably holding your breath at the same time. So there's so much that goes into that. So if you fall, and hopefully you can learn to prevent the falls, unless you're in the street and you're on the ground, stop and think for a minute. And you can think of whatever you want. I mean, I'd rather you think, why did I fall? What can I do to prevent it the next time? And go through that in your mind long enough to recover enough to have the ability to get up. Because then you can try these different ways that I'm going to show you. But getting up right away is going to be a fail for most people because you just had a fall. So one way is onto your side, bringing your leg over. Now, I could just stand up like this, but I'm assuming that if you have trouble getting up, that's not going to be something that you're going to be able to do. So you can climb up your body. Hand here, and if this is your good leg, and try to get up here and maybe walk yourself up and extend. That's one way. I mean, there's other ways to where if you're on the ground, if you can get yourself into this position. Now this way does require hip flexion. You have to be able to have strong hip flexors, even though you're not going to be flexing them or moving them. They're going to support you, but some people can do and if that seems like it's more difficult, it's a lot more easy if your legs are wide apart. So if you can get your legs apart like this, it's because the lever arm becomes more able to use, then it's here. And that's why some people who have weak or where it's obvious that their external rotators, their hips have their legs out like this most of the time. You know, if you're standing up and you look straight down, you'll know if you have this or this. When you're not thinking about it, just stop and look down. Or when you're sitting down, if you look and see if your feet are like this is what's better for you. So if you're in a seated position, getting up. Now, if you can get up and onto something, some people can do wide legs. And it's like a sumo squat, but there's not that much distance to get up. You see, does that look a lot more, valid than doing because if that was the case, you'd do it. So then there's also, if you were to go here, sorry, Bill. If you can get to here, if you can push yourself all the way back to here, then you can start climbing up your body again. But the ergonomically correct way to do it is the way I showed you. It's the same thing as getting out of bed. You shouldn't get out of bed straight up. Get onto your side, support yourself with your hands. That's when you can get this leg out here. If you can get this leg out here, now watch what I'm gonna do. I'm up already. Now, if you have upper body strength, you can put your hands to support and bring it back together. But it's something that you may want to practice with somebody else there so you can find what's best for you. You can try them all out, and if you try 100 times and the 100th time you find a way, you did the right thing. You found the right way, and you found a way to get up. Forget the 99 times that failed. That's not a failure. You succeeded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just so everybody knows, I mean, you're watching Jeff do that and you say, well, Jeff knows how to do that because Jeff's in good shape, right? Well, Jeff taught me to do this years ago. And before I did what I did to my leg, all right, I was able to get down off the ground like that. And it wasn't from a fall, but even if I'm on the ground doing something, I found that works to help get me back up again. So a guy of my size, yep, it works. Try it out.
Now that leads to the next thing about getting up. The easiest way to get up is at a lighter weight than you are if weight is an issue. So if you're overweight, everything is going to be a problem. You have so many things that are going to be more difficult. Standing out of a chair is going to be more difficult. I have a client that strong person. He doesn't have MS. He's we do all kinds of exercises. His goal is to gain muscle. Well, recently I had him do an exercise that's called a lateral reaching lunge. That's what I call it. And this is the exercise. I have a medicine ball or dumbbells, and they reach to the side, and they come back up. Down and up. Now you can modify that and do it just like that. But I told him, we're going to do this without weight now because he's got an appetite. And he's carrying a lot more weight than he was when I was having him do it with 30 pounds in his hands. Now he's got the upper body, muscles are bigger, belly's bigger. He's got an extra 30 pounds to come up with. And he's like, why aren't we using weight anymore? I'm like, because you ate it. You're carrying it with you. So that's some of the things that happen, but gaining weight and eating too much causes you poor health, poor ability. It's across the board. If you're overweight and your doctor hasn't told you to lose weight, it may be because he's your weight. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why, but your physician should be on the right page. And most of the time, when they do tell you something like that, and you think they didn't, it's because you didn't want to hear it, or you forgot it, or there's a lot of things that go on in appointments. That's why I try to go to my neurology appointments with somebody else, so I don't forget most of what they said and just remember the good stuff that made me look like a champ.
Last question.
Jeff, I have a question. I have the use of only one arm. What are some suggestions getting up like that?
Well, getting up with one arm. Now, if that's the only thing, then there's no reason for you to fall. So what I'm saying is, you're not going to. You're not.
I could stand, like to pivot and transfer.
You're going to need help to get up if you're able to get some more movement in your legs. Otherwise, what happens is when you get up and your legs aren't strong enough or don't have it, you can tear tendons and tear ligaments in your knees. Some people that, you don't know, no one's planning on falling. So your legs are not in the right position to fall when you fall. There's no right position to fall. You're not supposed to fall. But if you're twisted and you fall like this, you're going to tear the whole inside of your knee up, and getting up is going to be even twice as hard. So with you need somebody around. Your best bet is physical therapy and working with someone like over an extended period of time and telling them, let's work on this. This was a goal that I have. And don't make the goal getting up from the ground. Make it small, so that way you're succeeding and you get to the next goal and next goal. But short-term goals get to big-term results. You're welcome.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Let's get everybody give Jeff a thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me out.
So we're going to just call it a wrap, all right? I'm going to say thank you to everybody again, and to all our sponsors that were mentioned earlier today. And just have a great day, and hope you all drive carefully. Thank you.